This is interesting. The failure to self-govern.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
That's an easy sell.
Yeah.
Does anybody here think DC is working?
Is
No,
DC,
right?
Is
No?
DC broken?
It's broken. So whatever the problem is, if you can't discuss things together and have self-government, it's going to be a bigger problem. Doesn't matter whether it's Ebola or currency or anything else. And we're in a position where we have had the experience of, over a long period of time, I guess, losing track of our government, losing control of our own government as a democracy. I personally don't think we have a democracy anymore. And what I mean by that is, I believe that the control of what gets done in the Senate and the Congress is much more about the money that comes from corporations and lobbyists than my vote. I might vote for, I'll give you some examples. I mean, people believe in global warming, they believe in gun control, they believe in a bunch of things, but it won't get through Congress. Why? Because it's not really about how we feel. So there are two good solutions to this. This is a little more satisfying. But it's really frightening, and I think everyone probably agrees. It doesn't matter what party you're from. We all want to think that we're from the original America. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights really do matter, and that we really live in a democracy. We don't live in some other kind of crazy thing. So if we feel that way, then the best thing to do is to reinstate that somehow. It's that old boiling frog and the slow boiling. You want to do something before it's too late. And it almost feels like it's too late now. So I think it's clear that we need to do something. Can we? I don't know. We've lost a lot of power, so do we have the power now to make that change? I have no idea. But I know I'd like to try. And the simple two things, there's two things, in my opinion, that would fix everything. They're not easy, but they're clear. So the first one is, no corporation, nothing without a heartbeat can give money to any elected representative ever again. And that includes unions, and that includes lobbying groups, and that includes PACs, and make a list of all this stuff, right? They're all gone. They can still lobby in the old sense of the word. They can still argue, but they can't give any money. And so that's step, I can see you like that one. And then the other one is equally simple. Monday morning, we turn off the entire districting, gerrymandering, voting district maps of every state in the union. And we get a little Dell computer, and we give it a very short program that says, please rewrite the districts for every state based simply on head count. Not on race, creed, color, or what party they belong to. And just count the heads and make them all equal. And call us when you're done. And if we did that, we'd have our democracy back.
We went to student outreach this morning, which is really interesting, and I think, where's Max? Hey, Max. Max is a brilliant senior in high school, and I think we're going to hire him when he's done. And we talked about this. We talked about what kind of person should be a congressperson. And I think that this is something that we should bring up today. We're talking about how important it is to have a varied background of not only understanding humanity and being able to talk to people, but also to have the understanding of technology and science, to know what's really happening in the world, to be able to represent our country.
Well, that's a great point. So, and it was a great meeting, by the way. We had a great time at the high school. Yeah. And I think one of the teachers and another of the students all asked the same kind of question, which is, first of all, is STEM important, and how does that fit into government, good government? And a related question was, if STEM is so important, is liberal arts still important? Right. And the answer was, of course, yes. So the example I gave was, in the United States today, we have 535 elected representatives. And people have done this study already, and they've come up with different numbers. But the question is, how many of the 535 have had any training in science or technology in the 21st century? And the answer is somewhere between the number 2 and 20. And I'm not kidding. It's probably, so let's say it's 10, right? So it's like 10 out of 535? That's not enough, And so whatever they're studying, I hate to say this, but I think they study law and they learn how to argue really, really well. But what they don't learn is the sun goes around, and the earth goes around, and actually there is evolution, and global warming is real. So you get all these people who are great at screwing up each other's plans, but you don't end up with anyone who understands how the planet works. Now China, much smarter than we are on this score. They have a standing committee, 7 people at the Politburo, and all 7 of those men, all men, are engineers. They're not just engineers. They went to Harvard, MIT, Cornell. They're really smart engineers, and they have lots of experience in governing. So in terms of who's smarter about putting people at the top, we lose. We're putting people up there who are really questionable, and they're putting the very best, smartest, best educated guys they can find at the top of their pyramid. So we need to have students learning STEM education because we need to have those leaders. We don't need to have leaders who are better at yelling at each other. We need to have leaders who understand how the planet works, what science is all about, the fact that science is real, it's not an idea, it's not an alternative, it's not optional, it's real. And then how do you apply science to improving all of our lives? We need those people. So we definitely need students to study this stuff, and we also need them to be, if they're going to be in government, not just geeks, but to be well-trained in the wisdom of the ages. They need to study liberal arts as well and find out what Socrates found out and learn from the great books and then bring that into government. Those 2 things together make a great leader. And we don't have that right now. We need to get that.
And communicators.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I was very interested in your comment about our government. And I think everybody here would agree that we've got some real problems and it's broken and no one trusts anybody. The 2 comments that you commented upon, and as a student of history of the Constitution and our country, the parties have been fighting each other since Washington's second term. What is your solution, and how would you go about recreating the Constitutional Congress so that we would really look at our Constitution and see how it will apply to a nation of over 300 million people?
Right.
And then secondly, how do we get all the lawyers out of Congress?
Well, there's that famous Shakespeare line, right? Which let's kill all the lawyers. If there are lawyers here, I didn't say that, but it's often wished. I don't know how to get rid of lawyers, but I do think by training people, this is a cultural problem, really. You know, if you could vote for somebody, one guy was trained in science or in something like science, technology, and the other one was a lawyer, I'd vote for the science or technology guy. I'm hoping that if we get more and more people who would run for office, well, why would they run for office today, right? They wouldn't. They don't bother. We don't get a good crop of people running for it. So there's a circular problem there. I think, and I'm not an expert, you're an expert on this, but when the first Constitutional Convention was held, I don't believe that they had the same kind of party structure, and that was part of the difficulty. Exactly. So they didn't get a chance to figure that one out on the way to the, as an aside, when I hear that someone is acting party before country, now I'm a pretty nice guy, but I have this streak in me. I think they should be shot. I'm not kidding. I mean, you want to be a traitor? Go ahead. So, I really believe that you can't possibly put party before country. It doesn't make any sense. This is your country. The reason you have a party is to try to improve your country. That's what you're trying to do. You'd never put your party ahead of the country. That's insane. That's traitor. You're being a traitor if you do that. So I hope that the suggestion that I made, which is the parties drive into the extremes. It's how the combination of money and that have created the problem we have today. But I think that if you took the money out of that corporate side, of the non-heartbeat side, and if you also had a computer do just a level deal, no gerrymandering, everybody just votes and everybody gets counted the same, that would set parties way, way back. You'd still have them, but they wouldn't have the chokehold that they have today, and they wouldn't be fearless as incumbents. They'd have to worry about actually doing what you wanted, because you'd be one of many important voters, and all the money was coming from you. So I think even with parties, it would work fine. I'm hoping that's true.
Just to continue on that same line of thinking, will this country ever be able to have a viable third party? And would that third party be a technology party?
There are a lot of people wishing for that kind of thing. It's interesting watching Silicon Valley's allegiance. The Valley doesn't really know what it wants to be when it grows up. I think it started out slightly Democratic. It's gone a little bit Republican lately. It doesn't seem like anybody really knows what a technologist should be politically. And maybe that's great, because maybe they shouldn't be either one. I think it's very hard to create a third party in the United States. We've seen John Anderson try it. We've seen a number of people try it who are good people. The trouble is the same thing. So we're right back to television. In the age of mass media, where we have 300 million people you're trying to reach to get elected, or some large number in your state, the only effective way to do it, really, even with doorbelling, is television. And of course, negative ads work better than positive ads. So this takes money. And somehow, somebody forgot that we own television airwaves. We own them. The televisions make, if you check out their budgets, something like a third of their revenues come from political races. They make huge amounts of money during elections. They love this stuff. And of course, the corporations pay for it, and then they own the senators and congressmen after it's all done. But we own the airwaves. The televisions don't own the airwaves. They shouldn't have any right to sell them at all. So there's one idea, is the heck with that. Why would we pass legislation saying, screw that whole project? Everybody who runs gets 2 hours of TV time, courtesy of us, and that's it, you're done. Or whatever it's going to be. Everybody's even. Give it your best shot, have fun. Go negative, go positive, I don't care. But that's all you get. That'd be pretty interesting. It's going to be tough for a third party to break into the things that exist today, even with all the craziness, because of all the money.